Hello, today we're in the informative literary analytical writing packet. We're going to look at essential question number 6. What's the purpose of applying grammar mechanics skills in my writing? We are going to look in the convention section today at finding correct fragments and finding correct run-on sentences. Please date them today's date. So as we look at run-ons and fragments, just a review of some of these notes. First, for finding correct fragments, remember a sentence needs to have at least one independent clause that can stand alone. It has a subject, it has a verb, it's a complete thought, capital letter at beginning, period, or end mark at the end. Ways that we run into fragments is when we miss a subject. So we don't have a subject, we don't have a sentence. So we have a fragment. Maybe we don't have an actual action verb. So if we're missing a verb, we don't have a sentence, we have a sentence fragment. Or 3, maybe we have the subject and verb, but it's not a complete thought. That scenario arises when we have a subordinate clause that's being used. Subordinate clauses cannot stand alone. They need to be joined to independent ones. So a subordinate clause, although it does have the requirement of a subject and verb, has a feature about it, some other word that causes it to leave you hanging. It's not a complete thought. And those are also fragments, even though they might have a subject and a verb, because all clauses do. For learning target number 2, to find and correct run-on sentences, remember that we need to join 2 or more independent clauses together by using the proper punctuation. There are only a couple methods for proper punctuation joining of 2 independent clauses. First, the semicolon is strong enough, so you can correct a run-on by, instead of using a comma or no punctuation mark at all, by using a semicolon, which is the dot comma combination. The other way that you can fix a run-on sentence is by making sure that we have a comma with a conjunction. So comma and, comma but, comma for, comma so, comma nor, comma as, or comma yet. All would be strong enough to join 2 independent clauses together. But the comma by itself, that's still a run-on. It needs to be joined with the conjunction in order to correct a run-on sentence. Obviously, sometimes you'll see run-on sentences where you just have 2 independent clauses without any marks at all. So in order to correct that, you may need to make sure that you add the comma conjunction of the semicolon, or maybe just take those 2 independent clauses and make them 2 separate sentences by adding an end mark in between them. That is all options. Let's do some practice with these. First sentence, or first practice. Read the paragraph. Jamie collected the stones for a wall he wanted to build carefully. He put each one in place. He wanted the wall to look as if it had been there for many years without any changes. He had carefully selected stones to make the new wall look just as old as the other nearby walls did. Jamie stood back and admired the work he had already accomplished. Which sentence is a run-on and should be written as 2 sentences? Is it A, sentence 1, B, sentence 2, C, sentence 3, or D, sentence 4? The correct answer is A, sentence 1. Here's why. When it says Jamie collected stones for a wall he wanted to build carefully, he put each one into place, we have this independent clause right here with the subject being Jamie and the verb being collected. That ends right here. And then we have carefully, he put each one into place. Also independent. Subject he, put verb, can stand alone. We need either comma and, or a semicolon, or just an end mark to fix this run-on. Let's try another practice. Read the paragraph. There is an easy way to improve your ability to remember a person's name. When you are introduced to someone, repeat that person's name. For example, if you have just met Joy, say to her, "It's very nice to meet you, Joy." Now you are more likely to remember Joy's name. It is a simple but effective trick. Which sentence is a run-on sentence and should be written as 2 sentences? Is it A, sentence 1, B, sentence 2, C, sentence 3, or D, sentence 4? The correct answer for this one is D, sentence 4. Let's look at D, sentence 4. Now you are more likely to remember Joy's name. It is a simple but effective trick. Use the subject. Are is the verb. There's a new subject and verb. That all ends here. It is a new subject. Is a new verb. Both can stand alone. So we need comma and, or a semicolon if we want to keep them together, or if we want to separate, just put in that end mark. Let's try another one. Read the paragraph. Before planting flowers, consider their home, the soil. If the soil is thin, work in some old leaves or a soil mixture bought in a store. Natural materials like decayed leaves and grass help hold on to the moisture when it rains or when the plants are watered, so that the flowers will continue to grow even in the hot summer weather. Which sentence is not complete? Is it A, sentence 1, B, sentence 2, C, sentence 3, or D, sentence 4? The correct answer for this one is D, sentence 4. Here's why. So that the flowers will continue to grow well even in the hot summer weather, leaves you hanging. It may have a subject of flowers. It may have a verb, will continue. But this part right here, so that, are subordinating words, which means we have a subordinating conjunction when we use the word so that. This is a subordinate clause. So even though it has a subject and a verb, subordinate clauses cannot stand alone. To fix that, we don't need to use a semicolon or a comma conjunction because it cannot stand alone. We just need to add it to an independent portion. So we could probably add it right here. Depending on the subordinate clause, if it's an essential subordinate clause, in other words, is needed for the meaning of the sentence, then we wouldn't need the comma. If it's non-essential, then like extra information, then we need a one comma to introduce the subordinate clause. But that's a completely different rule. We're just looking at this as a fragment. So when we say so that the flowers will continue to grow even even in the hot summer weather, it's not a complete sentence. It's a sentence fragment, even though it has that subject verb, because it's a subordinate clause. And subordinate clauses leave you hanging. So it is missing one of the three parts that are needed to have a complete sentence. So make sure that you're checking your writing for fragments and run-ons. Make sure that you're not using subordinate clauses at the beginning of as a sentence by themselves, and make sure that you make any needed corrections to your writing to avoid using fragments and run-ons. Go ahead and continue this practice with a type 1.